My roommate stole $30,000 from me, so I let her think she got away with it, then turned her entire life into a disaster. I noticed the money was gone on a Tuesday morning. It was subtle at first. I opened my banking app like I always did before work, just to check that everything was stable. There it was, my balance gutted. A jagged pit opened in my stomach as I blinked at the screen, thinking maybe it was a glitch, some delayed transactions or a pending payment. But no, when I pulled up the statement, the truth was immediate and razor sharp. Over $30,000 withdrawn in the last 4 weeks. Not all at once, but in pieces, small enough to fly under the radar if you weren't looking closely. I hadn't been. Until now. I sat still on the edge of my bed, the cold of the hardwood floor pressing through my socks, the hum of the ceiling fan the only sound in the room. The realization sank like concrete in my chest. My emergency fund, my hard-earned savings, my cushion for the future, gone, eaten away in silence while I slept in the room next to hers. I wasn't the kind of person who spent recklessly. I didn't gamble. I didn't drink. I didn't even order takeout unless it was a weekend. I kept things clean, ordered, safe. I already knew who did it before I even confronted her. Melissa, my roommate for 10 months. The one with the high heels always clacking across our laminate floors, who used my skincare products without asking, who talked over me during movie nights and, accidentally, borrowed my clothes without ever returning them. She'd been charming when we met, all dimpled smiles and sarcastic jokes, working part-time at a local boutique while finishing her graduate degree. She had bills, but so did I. I kept my distance, paid my half on time, and let her be. We weren't friends. We weren't enemies. We were just two people sharing a space, or so I thought. I didn't confront her right away. I didn't slam doors or shout or accuse her. That's what she probably expected. Some emotional outburst, something she could twist into a misunderstanding or a shared blame. I said nothing. I watched. I listened. I made her think she was in the clear, because she was sloppy. 2 days after I noticed the money missing, she came home with a brand new iPhone, the kind with more cameras than common sense, and casually tossed the box on the kitchen counter like it meant nothing. "Finally upgraded," she said, stretching, yawning like she'd just returned from war. It was time. I nodded. "Looks nice." She smiled. She thought I was stupid. That weekend she left town for a girls' trip to Miami, tagging me in some blurry beach photo she posted as a joke. "Wish you were here," the caption read, followed by 3 crying laugh emojis. I didn't respond. I was too busy screen recording her story, saving every clip she posted to a hidden folder on my drive. She thought I didn't notice the new clothes arriving in Amazon boxes on our doorstep, the $300 hair appointments, the Uber Eats charges on her card 3 times a day. She thought I wouldn't see the Venmo payments or the sudden rise in her lifestyle, the way she started tipping delivery drivers in 20s like she was a celebrity. She thought I wouldn't notice that the girl who used to ration out her shampoo had suddenly found a faucet of money to fund her impulsive tastes. I let it happen. I let her believe it was working. Meanwhile, I was building the story. Quietly, patiently, day by day, line by line. I started by calling my bank. They flagged the withdrawals as unverified, but because they were done using my login and from known devices, they couldn't do much. That didn't surprise me. Melissa knew my passwords. I'd told her one in passing when she needed to pay the internet bill. She must have realized I used variants of the same one across most sites. A few attempts, maybe some saved autofills, and she was in. She didn't need to be a hacker. She just needed to be close. So I did what she didn't expect. I didn't go to the police. Not yet. I didn't warn her. I didn't yell. I became invisible in my own apartment. I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of bank statements, matched dates and times to her purchases, her travel, her photo uploads. I cross-referenced her phone location with transaction pings. I dug into my old emails for any financial records, passwords, receipts. I even went back and checked the shared Wi-Fi usage logs. I pulled together everything that connected the timeline to her. It wasn't hard. She wasn't careful. She never thought I'd look. 2 weeks later, I installed a small camera in the living room, hidden inside a fake plant. Not because I thought she'd do it again. No, I knew the big theft was over, but I wanted proof of her comfort. Her arrogance, the way she carried herself like a queen in someone else's kingdom. every yawn, every laugh, every phone call where she talked about finally getting ahead. I caught it all. Time-stamped, clear as daylight. She started having people over more often. A new crowd. Flashier, louder. One guy in particular, a real estate type with a loud voice and a louder watch, came over 3 times in 1 week. They made drinks, blasted music, talked about flipping crypto and turning money into more money. I heard him joke about lucky breaks. Melissa laughed and said she found a way. She never explained. She didn't need to. She was proud of herself. She thought I was too weak to fight back. But I wasn't planning to fight. I was planning to end her. Her job was the first thread I pulled. She worked for a mid-sized marketing agency downtown, mostly remote, but occasionally went into the office on Wednesdays. I emailed her supervisor using an anonymous account, attaching a neat PDF containing screenshots of my bank withdrawals, side by side with her Venmo charges and photos of the iPhone time-stamped a day later. I added a few stills from the living room footage showing her bragging, laughing, talking openly about finally getting what she deserved. No threats, no demands, just data. She was fired by Friday. The next step was her apartment application. She'd been planning to move out in 2 months, into a 1-bedroom across the river, closer to that new crowd she was hanging around with. I found the property manager's name from a lease folder she left on the kitchen counter. I called him anonymously and sent another file, this one more aggressive, containing flagged credit activity, an alert about financial fraud, and police reports filed in my name. With all relevant documentation, he called her the same day. Application denied. Deposit withheld. Her bank was next. I filed a full fraud report. It took 3 hours of sitting in a sterile branch office, going over every transaction, proving my identity, showing how the account was accessed using familiar devices while I was away or asleep. The rep was sympathetic but firm. "We need to investigate." I nodded. "Take your time." I wasn't in a rush. Melissa was. The bank froze her account within 48 hours. I watched her unravel from across the hallway. First came the confusion. Cards declining, apps not loading, Venmo requests bouncing back. Then the anger, slamming doors, pacing, yelling on the phone. I didn't flinch, I didn't offer help. I sat on the couch with headphones on and a book I wasn't really reading. She barely noticed me. I had become background noise to her by then, the invisible roommate too dull to matter. Then came the panic. I overheard her whispering to her mother on speakerphone one night, voice trembling. "No, I don't know what happened. I don't know who reported it. I swear I didn't do anything illegal. I don't know why they're saying fraud." I knew. And finally, when I had all my pieces in place, I filed the police report. Proper, clean, legal. I submitted every transaction trail, every email, the footage, the screenshots, even voice clips from phone conversations caught on the living room mic. The officer took notes, nodded slowly, asked me how I remained so calm. I told him I didn't have the luxury of being angry anymore. Anger was useless. I wanted closure. What I didn't say was, I wanted her to drown in the quiet storm I'd built around her. By the end of the month, Melissa was jobless, broke, and facing an investigation for digital theft and identity fraud. Her name was flagged on background checks. Her new crowd stopped calling. Her mother stopped answering. She stayed in her room more. Curtains closed, lights off. The girl who once floated around the apartment like she owned it now moved like a shadow, afraid of every knock at the door. And I made tea. I read. I looked for a new place, quietly. Because sometimes revenge isn't about shouting. Sometimes it's just about watching someone walk confidently into a future they thought was theirs, until the floor caves in under their feet. After the bank froze her account, I watched her spiral into confusion. Not loudly, not violently. She unraveled in stages, unspoken, chaotic, and private. She spent longer in the bathroom, hunched over the sink, redoing the same eyeliner 3 times in a row before giving up completely. Her groceries vanished. The takeout bags stopped showing up at the door. The sound of laughter and late-night phone calls that used to echo from her bedroom turned into muffled silence. Melissa had always been noisy about her comfort, loud about her small wins. Now her quiet was more revealing than anything she could have said out loud. I wasn't finished with her. I didn't want just a fall. I wanted everything she'd built on my stolen foundation to collapse under its own weight. Publicly, without a single whisper from me. The kind of destruction that leaves someone breathless not because they didn't see it coming, but because they never thought you had it in you. She didn't know the police had contacted me again. They wanted clarification. I gave them more evidence, documents she'd thrown in the kitchen trash without shredding, which I'd carefully collected with latex gloves, screenshots of her matching login times with money transfers. The stolen funds weren't just stolen. They were laundered through crypto apps, disguised as anonymous gift purchases, funneled through alternate Venmo accounts with usernames that were clearly hers if you connected the usernames to her email habits. She didn't even bother hiding her patterns. She thought her charm would always buy her enough space to play careless. That charm was dying now. She was still living here, but only in body. Her presence had shrunk. She crept from her room to the kitchen like a stranger in her own home. She stopped making eye contact with me. She didn't knock on my door to ask dumb questions anymore. She barely existed in my space now, and I let her think that was enough, that if she just kept her head down, maybe I'd forget the whole thing. But I had other plans. I had created a second folder. The first was for the police and banks. The second was for her life, her personal image, her online persona, the one she cultivated with selfies at brunch and inspirational quotes under beach photos. I collected every post she ever made where she pretended to be grinding, thriving, or winning. Every tweet where she talked about being a self-made queen. I screenshotted her captions boasting about her financial independence. The timing of those posts coincided perfectly with the exact days my money disappeared. Then I contacted her ex-boyfriend. His name was Darren. We'd never spoken directly, but I'd seen him around once or twice before they broke up 6 months ago. I found him easily through Instagram. His account was public. The kind of guy who still posted gym selfies with long captions about discipline. I messaged him without using my real name. Just a tip, I said. Just someone who thought he might want to know the truth about how Melissa had paid for their last trip to Aspen. I attached the proof. He didn't respond for 3 days, then messaged back at 2:17 a.m. with one line. "Oh no." That was enough. He reshared the screenshots, first in his stories, then in a post. A thread of photos and messages, including proof she'd paid for his plane ticket using a bank account that wasn't hers. He tagged her. He didn't care. She couldn't take it down. She didn't have access to the damage now. She didn't have control over the narrative anymore. It took less than a day for her comment section to flood. She deleted all her accounts by midnight. Her parents called the next morning. I heard her on the phone, standing in the hallway, voice hoarse and raw. "No, I didn't steal anything. It's a lie. Someone's framing me. I don't know how they got into my accounts. I didn't do anything wrong." The more she denied it, the more frantic she sounded. Her lies had worn out. They no longer had weight. They just circled the drain, trying to hold water in a sinking basin. She didn't leave the apartment for days. She canceled her gym membership, stopped going to class. Her grad advisor emailed the shared apartment inbox asking why she hadn't submitted her thesis progress. I marked it as unread. I knew what was next. The dominoes were lined up. When the detective showed up at our door, she looked like she hadn't slept. Her hoodie was pulled tight around her face. She answered the door like a ghost, trying to stand up straight but failing to make eye contact. I stayed in my room. I didn't interfere. I just listened. The conversation lasted 23 minutes. I could hear her voice shift from defensive to confused to scared. When the door finally shut again, she collapsed into a chair in the living room and stared at the wall, like something had just disconnected in her head. Her hands trembled. Her phone buzzed. She didn't touch it. She didn't know that the detective had already interviewed 2 of her professors, that they'd confirmed she'd been distracted, unfocused, barely attending class, that one of them had seen her crying in the stairwell 2 weeks earlier and had thought she was having a breakdown. They weren't wrong. They just didn't know what kind. I wasn't done yet. I called her landlord, our shared landlord, not anonymously this time. I explained the situation, gave a timeline, shared the police report number, and asked what options were available for terminating a lease early if someone involved in financial crime was still on the premises. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I just laid the facts out calmly. I had never missed rent. Melissa had skipped hers this month. That was enough. She received a termination notice the following Monday, 30 days to vacate. She cried in her room that night, not loud, not theatrical, just a soft, tired sound that carried through the thin walls like a secret she couldn't hold anymore. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't shame. It was exhaustion. A whimper from someone who finally realized they weren't going to be rescued from the trap they set. I let it happen. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't acknowledge it. She never apologized. Not once. Not in words. Not in looks. Not in action. She thought she could just lay low until it passed. That was her mistake, because I had one last thing to do. I uploaded everything, not to my feed, not to any account with my name attached. I created a page under the name The Roommate Report. A clean, simple layout. One post, a single headline. She thought she could steal and stay silent. The post contained every file, screenshots, bank statements, timeline breakdowns, her voice in recordings, her laughter during stolen moments, her bragging. Her bragging was the nail. No one can deny their own voice echoing in a quiet room. I didn't promote it. I didn't need to. It spread on its own. Her name was unique. Her face recognizable. People put two and two together fast. Her old friends distanced themselves. Her professors stopped replying. The boutique she used to work at reposted a story saying, "We do not condone fraud of any kind, and this individual is no longer associated with our brand." Even people who had nothing to do with her shared the page, adding their own commentary. She had become a lesson. And I moved out. I found a studio across town, small, quiet, and clean. I didn't tell her I was leaving. I packed while she was at what was left of her court meeting. I left nothing behind. No note, no goodbye. Just an empty room with fresh air and no memories. She came home to silence. No one to blame. No one left to pretend for. She thought I was the quiet one. But the quiet ones don't yell when they're angry. They destroy with precision. They wait. And when it's time, they bury you with your own decisions. After I moved out, the silence between us became permanent. There were no messages, no phone calls, no desperate apologies sliding under the door. She knew I was gone. She just didn't know how far it would go after that. I signed the lease to my new place under my legal name, but I changed all my passwords, set up two-factor authentication, and closed the account she had accessed. I wasn't paranoid. I was methodical. Every piece of her was scrubbed from my digital life. Every folder, every document, every memory I didn't need anymore was stored offline, encrypted, and removed from sight. I was done collecting. I had everything I needed, and more than enough had already been used. The page I created, the one that later out in public, remained untouched. I never responded to the comments, never liked a post, never acknowledged its existence again. It lived on its own, gathering momentum long after I'd logged out for good. Her name was tied to that archive permanently. Every search of her full name now brought it up in the first 3 results. Screenshots from that page spread across Reddit threads, Facebook groups, and private forums for renters and students warning others to avoid people like her. She tried reporting it. I know because the host platform temporarily suspended the page for privacy concerns. But I had anticipated that. Every file was mirrored elsewhere. It came back within 48 hours, stronger than before, with more people backing it up. She had no idea who controlled it, no idea who ran the accounts amplifying it. By then, it didn't matter. The internet had taken it over. Her eviction date came and passed. She didn't fight it. She left the apartment without drama. Didn't argue, didn't beg for time. She packed what she could in 2 suitcases and left behind the rest. Furniture, old clothes, a few kitchen items. She couldn't take it all, and no one offered to help her. The landlord had someone else move in by the end of the month. They painted over the wall she had once covered with Polaroids and Dreamboard quotes. There was no sign she ever lived there. I later found out where she went. She moved back in with her parents in a suburb outside the city. Her father worked in construction. Her mother managed a daycare. Neither of them posted much online, but someone who followed the story recognized her in a grocery store parking lot and uploaded a photo of her loading bags into a used Toyota. She looked smaller. Not thinner, just diminished. Like someone who had been running full speed and slammed into a wall. Her graduate school dismissed her. Not officially expelled, but they asked her to withdraw voluntarily while the legal process unfolded. Her final project was marked incomplete, and her name was removed from the graduation list. I confirmed that through the department's public announcement page. She didn't walk. She didn't get the degree. 3 years in debt to her name, but no paper to show for it. Her reputation never recovered. The boutique that fired her published a blog post titled, "Accountability and Integrity in the Workplace." It didn't name her directly, but it didn't have to. Anyone who had followed the posts, even briefly, understood the implication. She applied for work elsewhere, but every interview was followed by silence. Background checks, internet searches, references that quietly blacklisted her. Her past was stitched to her name like a scar. She couldn't shake it. She had no defense left. And still, she never reached out. She never tried to explain, never sent a message, never offered closure. But I didn't need it. I got what I came for. I never expected an apology. I didn't want one. Words mean nothing when they come too late, when they're dragged out by consequence, not guilt. She'd made her choices. She thought she was clever. She thought I was easy to deceive, easy to step over, easy to rob without reaction. But she'd misjudged me. She had mistaken silence for weakness. She didn't realize that quiet people are often just calculating, watching, measuring, choosing the exact moment to move, and then making sure every step counts. By the time her court hearing came, I'd already moved on. The prosecutor had enough. I was contacted one final time to confirm my testimony, and I agreed to show up. It wasn't about confrontation. I didn't even care if she made eye contact with me across the courtroom. I wasn't there to watch her cry. I wanted my presence to serve as a final, undeniable confirmation that I had never been absent in any of it. She sat at the defendant's table with a public attorney beside her. Her hair was tied back. She wore cheap clothes, no makeup, no nails. The version of her I saw there didn't resemble the person who used to laugh about my quietness while texting from a phone she bought with my stolen money. That version of her was gone. The judge reviewed the evidence. My folder was submitted. The financial trails. The video files. Her voice, recorded in her own home, laughing about how she had figured it out. The same voice that once told me I was too passive to be taken seriously. She pleaded no contest to electronic theft and unauthorized access of financial information. Her attorney tried to negotiate restitution. I declined a civil settlement. I didn't want her money. I wanted the conviction on paper. I wanted a permanent record she couldn't erase, seal, or bury. The court granted probation and a full restitution order. She would have to pay back every cent, slowly, with interest, over years. It wouldn't come quickly. It wouldn't come easily. But she'd remember every month when another piece of her paycheck vanished into a debt she created, a debt she built on a lie and carried alone. The judge's voice was steady. Melissa's eyes stayed down. She didn't look at me once, not during the ruling, not after. She walked out of the courtroom with her shoulders hunched forward, her steps slow, like someone walking into weather she knew she couldn't escape. I left the building without hesitation. No celebration, no emotion, just air in my lungs and the knowledge that it was done. There was no more story to build, no more revenge to craft. She'd lost everything she used to define herself, her job, her degree, her apartment, her friends, her financial safety, and her public image. And all I did was reflect her choices back at her. I didn't scream. I didn't lash out. I didn't lift a finger until I had every piece I needed. That was what made it permanent. In the end, there was no twist, no reconciliation, no return. Just a simple truth. She stole something she thought no one would notice, and I gave her time to hang herself with the lie. I don't think about her often anymore. Sometimes when I see someone tap their card at a coffee shop without looking at the price, I remember the day she walked in with that new phone like it cost nothing. Sometimes when I lock my accounts or change my passwords, I remember how fast someone can steal something if they think you're not watching. But mostly she's gone. Not because I let her go, but because she made herself disappear. She thought she'd ruined me quietly, but I destroyed her completely.